Hello and welcome to this new series where we are going to discuss or explore the journey of how to become a protocol engineer. So if you're someone who already has written smart contracts, so this is probably the next course or the next journey which one would like to take. Now, a brief background about myself. I pretty much started my journey from becoming an application developer to a smart contract engineer to a blockchain engineer. And here I am exploring a particular specific repository, which is very much useful in the Ethereum ecosystem called Reth. So I already had a pretty vast experience. I've written like a lot of code on top of Alloy. So Alloy is another repository. If you already know, great. So Foundry is very much used actually to write a bunch of tests around a Solidity smart contract. And there comes Alloy, where you presume that you already have a node and you are trying to connect with the node. So you do not much get to explore or rather build a customized node because you do not know much that what is happening inside a node. You simply run a local node, which we call it as like Anvil, and therefore you get to connect with it. And then you do make bunch of calls like read or write, like fetching some transaction or sending some transaction, or let's say you're just subscribing to set of blocks, like new incoming blocks, whatever is coming to that node. So all those activities, all those tasks you can do very well. You can also batch calls. So all of those is possible through Alloy and even more. But that is not part of what we are going to explore in this journey. So this series is going to be focused onto like Reth specifically. So we will follow a bottom-up approach. Like, we will first go through the theory, and then we will move to the practical side of it, which is like, the coding aspect of it. So bear with me. If you really want to learn all of it, please do have the patience to, we will slowly and steadily, we will definitely go there. Uh, okay, without further ado, let's start. All right. So Ethereum node. Okay. So first of all, Ethereum node with the diagram which is shown here is post-merge. So pre-merge, there used to be only a single node which was responsible for validation of a block as well as like getting the authority of validating a block, that is called mining. So previously, Ethereum was proof of work, but after merge, it is proof of stake, which means like there are two component of a node. One is consensus node and the other one is execution node. So here, if you see, like we often, the consensus node is also called as like something which is, yeah, that is beacon. And consensus layer is mainly responsible to like participate into communicating with the known peers and uh, accepting blocks. Okay, and then validating part of the information, like for example, validating a block and all, but not entirely. It's a partial validation. We will come to that later, but for now, just presume that there is some kind of a preliminary validation which is done, and then the main validation is done later on, which is like on the execution node. I mean, the execution layer. Okay. All right. So we will first start with like how can one run a node. Okay. So I'm just showing you the pieces, but definitely you can try on your own as well. Okay. So if you just if you do Reth node, so I've just taken the snapshot of the terminal and pasted it here for easy explanation. So when you run a node using this command called Reth node, you basically create a folder, okay? And that folder is specifically like this, looks like this, which is like, it contains a blob store. So blob store was previously not there. It has come recently, like after the activation of EIP 4844, post which like L2s can submit big blobs to the DA layer of a node. Okay, so that is where this blob store comes into the picture. Then comes the this bunch of other files like JWT hex and then reth.toml file, known peers, DB, invalid block hooks, discovery, all of it. I'll come to the main files. So reth.toml is of course the config file of the Reth node, and then you have the known peers. So if you can simply like see it. Okay, sorry. Mainnet and then known. Yeah, so you can see like there are a bunch of nodes, okay, and e-nodes, and these are particularly like the identifier of a node, okay. Now coming to the other part, okay, which is so when you are spinning up a node, okay, you basically are looking for. I mean, first of all, you are opening a database, okay, and inside the database, you are actually, initializing it, kind of, okay. Running a Reth node does not mean that you have synced to the rest of the peers, because actually, you cannot, participate into the. So Reth node, as I mentioned before, it's just a execution layer. So therefore, you also need to run a consensus node as well. So Reth does not provide that, okay, fortunately or unfortunately, whatever. And you have to run a separate command called light node, and that light node will basically let you, when you run this, then you basically end up with the terminal looking like this. You can see here a few things, like for example, this is the HTTPS mainnet checkpoint. This particular URL is something which is which you are fetching the information from, or the blocks from. Okay, so when you are running the Lighthouse, it is actually sorry, there's a correction, by the way. This is Lighthouse. Sorry. So Lighthouse, when you're running this, it is supposed to fetch the block from that particular node or URL. And also at the same time, it is supposed to look for the execution layer. Okay. And then that execution layer is discovered by this local host, which of course, because you are running that consensus node, so you will of course look for a locally running execution node. So that is why this local host. And then comes the JWT part, which is the, you can say it is like kind of like acting as an API kind of thing. So actually there is a small API which actually like is connected, like execution and consensus. So execution and consensus, there is an engine API, okay, which we will see it in more detail. We are talking about Node CLI in particular. So this is what is happening here, that light node is running, and then installation. Before that, so light node, as I mentioned, it is doing its job in terms of fetching the blocks and then also communicating with the execution layer. Okay, so in essence, what it does is like it fetches the blocks, and that block it actually sends it to the execution layer after preliminary validation, and then the execution layer is doing that the main validation, or you can say like if there is any like EVM oriented validation. For example, we need to validate the transactions. So all those transactional validation is done at the execution layer. And if I have to disclose like what validation exactly is done on the consensus part, to begin with, first who has proposed the block. So we will definitely check for the signature and all, so that we identify that yes, the block is correctly proposed by somebody. And you can consider it like something like EC recover, something like that. So that's how we identify that, okay, fine, the block is a real one. Then coming is, there is another thing which is like whenever you are fetching the block, as I mentioned, it is actually sent to the execution layers. The execution layer, now a block will contain like a bunch of transactions, and at the consecution at the this consensus level, there is this withdrawals. So after post merge, what happened was like there is a staking required in order to become a validator. If you don't know, this is what happens, that the minimum amount of ETH in order to become a validator is 32 ETH. So basically, you have to stake it. Now the thing is here that there is a deposit contract which is deployed at the Genesis level. Okay, not exactly Genesis, but yes, you can consider it as like a genesis of the first block after the post merge. Okay, and that is where everything is going very differently. Okay, so now there are a bunch of withdrawals as well. For example, if someone has got 32 point, let's say 25 ETH, then 0.25 ETH is, the person can withdraw. Okay. Now there are a bunch of withdrawals. Okay, which all of that we will cover in detail, but bear with me. But yes, this is what is happening in essence. And yeah. So yeah, coming back. So this is how the node looks like. Okay, it constantly looks for like the so if you are running Reth node first and then followed by light node, so this is how it looks like. Now if you sorry lighthouse. Now if you run the lighthouse first and then Reth node, then it will constantly like buzz you to start the Reth node. Okay, you can try it for yourself. Uh, but this is what is happening. Okay. Now, after the light node is lighthouse is run, then you will basically end up receiving this message called received fork choice. Okay, that's it for now. I'm going to see you in the next video. Till then, stay tuned and do follow me. Thank you.